Have you ever looked someone in the eyes and wondered what they're really thinking, but couldn't find the truth behind their smile? That quiet doubt, that uneasy instinct, it lingers. It whispers that something's off, but your logic keeps silencing it. You tell yourself you're overthinking. That maybe they didn't mean it that way, that it's just your imagination. And so, once again, you trust the mask. While the dagger waits in the dark, this is how most people get hurt. Not because they're weak, but because they were taught to assume the best. They were conditioned to see kindness as sincerity, politeness as loyalty, and words as truth. But the harsh reality, most people don't wear their intentions on their face. They bury them behind charm, behind convenience, behind whatever persona you're most likely to accept. And if you can't see through it, they will use it. Your kindness becomes a doorway. Your trust becomes currency. Your presence becomes a product. People don't always lie with their mouth. They lie with consistency, with gestures, with reactions. And if you don't know how to read the undercurrent, if you haven't trained your mind to test what's behind the words, you will always be vulnerable. Not emotionally soft, but strategically blind. And in today's world, that kind of blindness is a liability you cannot afford. You need to understand something. Not everyone who stands beside you is with you. Some are only there to study your weakness. Some are there to stay close to your energy. Some are waiting for you to slip so they can justify the betrayal they've already been planning. That's why your greatest weapon is not brute strength. It's perception, precision, psychological vision sharp enough to cut through the script people rehearse and reach the core of what they really want from you. But here's the truth that Sting's intentions don't reveal themselves in comfort. They reveal themselves under pressure. The only way to see someone's true nature is to disrupt the script, create friction, control the conditions, and observe. You don't need to confront. You don't need to accuse. You need to test. Silently, strategically, repeatedly. Because the moment you stop hoping for honesty and start looking for patterns, the truth gets loud. Loud enough to change how you move, who you allow, what you tolerate, and most of all, who you trust with your time, your loyalty, your peace. If you stay until the end, you'll learn how to expose anyone's true intentions using 7 Machiavellian tests, tools designed to cut through charm, bypass manipulation, and reveal someone's real motivation without ever saying a word. Not through guesswork, but through deliberate action. These aren't games. They are psychological filters. Use them and you'll never be caught off guard again. Because once you see clearly, you can move powerfully. And when you move with clarity, no one can use confusion against you. Stay sharp. Stay watching. Stay ahead. Stay ahead. The truth is always there. You just need to know where to look. The fastest way to see someone's truth is to become slightly less convenient. Not rude, not distant, just unavailable enough to interrupt their comfort. Slow your responses. Say less. Give less. Give less. See what remains when your energy isn't on tap. The ones who value you will adjust with grace. The ones who only value what they get from you will crack, complain, or vanish. That reaction, it's the unfiltered version of their intent. That's the scarcity trap. Simple, silent, and brutally effective. People who come close for gain will not survive silence. They're addicted to the supply you didn't know you were giving. Your encouragement, your support, your access. Remove it just slightly, and they'll reveal the real relationship. They were feeding off you, not feeding into you. This is why so many are shocked when they step back and someone turns cold. It was never love. It was leverage. You just never noticed until the current stopped flowing. Next, stop chasing. Stop over-delivering. Just match their energy. Reflect it like a mirror. If they invest, you invest. If they retreat, you don't fill the gap. Let them meet themselves in the mirror. Let them face their own reflection in your silence. People show their clearest intentions when the performance ends. When they're no longer being pulled along by your effort, they must reveal their own. And what you'll see in that moment is everything they've been pretending not to be. This is where illusions start to die. Because most people depend on you doing the emotional labor. They depend on you initiating, fixing, explaining, caring. But the second you mirror instead of manage, they're exposed. If they care, they step up. If they don't, they blame you for the silence they created. That's how you separate the genuine from the transactional. Not with words, but with space. These tests aren't cruelty. They are clarity. You're not punishing anyone. You're protecting yourself. Because life is too short to keep investing in those who are only present when you're pouring. You need people who can handle your absence, not just your presence. People who can match your silence with loyalty, not insecurity. That's how you build a circle of truth around you, not noise. And when you start using these tools, something shifts inside you. The fear of loss turns into power. The need to explain fades. The need to impress dies, because you're no longer trying to hold on to people who can't stand in your absence. You're letting them reveal themselves, and that is the beginning of emotional dominance. You don't rise by forcing others to stay. You rise by watching who's still standing when you stop reaching. Every reaction is a confession, and once you train yourself to observe instead of assume, you won't just protect yourself, you'll elevate yourself. Because the ones who stay after the mask drops, those are the ones worth building with. Everyone else is just noise waiting to collapse under your silence. Jealousy is the enemy of loyalty, and most people hide it behind a forced smile. The moment your life starts accelerating, when you win, when you rise, when things finally go your way, that's when their true nature surfaces. Watch carefully, share a success. See who claps from the soul and who hesitates before pretending. Real support has no pause. Real allies celebrate without comparison. But envy always shows up late, wearing a mask it can't hold for long. You're not testing people to trap them. You're testing them to free yourself, because every time you grow, you create distance, not just from your past, but from anyone who depended on your limitations. Your wins challenge their comfort. Your rise triggers their insecurity. That's the win test. It doesn't lie. It doesn't bend. It doesn't care how long you've known someone. It only reveals who feels threatened by your light. And if someone can't celebrate your light, they will try to dim it. The same principle applies to boundaries. The moment you stop bending, you find out who was only close because they could control you. Say no. Cancel once. Ask for time. Draw a line where there was none before. The people who respect you will adjust. The people who used you will resist. Because your boundaries don't offend healthy people. They offend manipulators who depended on your lack of them. You are allowed to protect your space without guilt. You are allowed to change your mind, to walk away, to choose yourself without apology. And the moment you do, people will show you what they were hiding. If they guilt trip you, they never respected you. If they punish your distance, they never valued your peace. Every reaction to your boundary is a reflection of their real motive. Respect reveals truth. Resistance reveals control. This is why you stop explaining. You stop over-explaining your decisions to people who were never committed to understanding you in the first place. Because the more you justify your worth, the more you devalue it. Let your silence speak. Let your line be enough. And if someone walks because you stood firm, they were never standing with you to begin with. These tests are not for revenge. They're for liberation. You are not here to convince people of your value. You are here to witness who recognizes it without pressure, who stays when there's nothing to gain, who respects you when you protect your time, your goals, your energy. Every time you pass these tests, you get stronger. You get clearer. You get lighter. Because what leaves you, in truth, is always making space for something more real. If you want peace, choose honesty over attachment. If you want strength, choose boundaries over approval. And if you want power, choose growth over comfort. These aren't just tests, they're declarations. You're not guessing anymore, you're watching, you're learning, and you're taking your power back one silent move at a time. Pressure doesn't create character, it reveals it. And chaos is the purest pressure there is. That's where the next layer of truth hides. When everything's going well, anyone can pretend. But when your world shakes, when you're uncertain, when you're not shining, watch who sticks around. Most people don't love you. They love your strength. They love your energy. They love your usefulness. Let them see you tired, confused, or broken, and you'll find out whether they were ever really there for you or just the version of you that served them. You don't need everyone to fix your problems. You just need to see who vanishes when they can't use you. That silence is clarity. The ones who truly care will show up without needing to be asked. They won't run from your pain. They'll sit in it with you, even if they don't have answers. And that's how you separate the loyal from the opportunists. Not by how they treat you when you're strong, but by how they react when you have nothing to offer but vulnerability. The next test cuts even deeper. Give them a piece of truth, not something dramatic, just something real, a small confession, a crack in the armor. Watch how they handle it. Do they protect it or use it? Do they hold space for your humanity, or do they shrink, flinch, judge? Weak minds are threatened by vulnerability. They'll mock it, weaponize it, or twist it later to gain leverage. Strong minds embrace it. They see honesty as strength. They know that trust is built on exposure, not perfection. This is how you test the soul behind the smile. You drop the mask first and see what they do, not to impress them, but to expose them. Because if someone can't handle your truth when it costs them nothing, they'll betray it when it benefits them. This is psychological security, knowing who can carry your truth without turning it into a weapon. You've been trained to hide your flaws to be accepted, but the ones who only stay for the flawless version of you aren't safe. You will exhaust yourself performing, proving, pretending, until you realize the real test of a connection is how much of your truth it can hold without breaking. And the moment you give up the need to be perfect, you'll start seeing clearly who leans in, who leans out, who listens, who shifts. That's not just feedback, that's revelation. Let people disqualify themselves. Don't beg for safety. Test for it. You don't need to guess who's safe with your chaos or your flaws. You create the space and let the reaction do the talking. Truth doesn't hide when it's invited in. It reveals itself. And every time you run these tests, you sharpen your vision. You cut through the noise. You reclaim your power. Stop seeking perfect people. Start seeking honest reactions. That's where your peace lives. That's where your circle tightens. And that's how you become untouchable. Not because no one can hurt you, but because no one gets close without earning it. Silence is not just absence. It is pressure, precision, and exposure. The final test is silence itself, the vacuum where your presence once lived. You don't announce it. You don't explain it. You simply pull back. No warnings, no performance, just space. And in that space, you watch everything unfold. People reveal who they are when they think they've lost access to what they never appreciated. Some will panic, some will plot, some will disappear. All of it is truth. You don't do this to punish, you do this to see. Because when you're constantly present, constantly available, constantly giving, others adapt to the rhythm of your effort. But when the rhythm stops, when the music fades, they have two choices. Step forward with authenticity or retreat in resentment. Most choose the second. And that's not a failure. That's a filter. You didn't lose them. You saw them. This is how you eliminate guesswork. You replace assumptions with behavior, you stop hoping they care, and you give them the chance to prove whether they do. The silence vacuum is where masks dissolve, where performance ends, where obligation can't breathe. The people who come forward without pressure, without guilt, without needing anything from you, those are your people. Everyone else was just orbiting your gravity. This is the moment you stop chasing. You stop trying to convince someone to stay. You stop trying to decode mixed signals, because if someone can't handle your distance, they never valued your closeness. And if someone only reaches for you when they feel your absence, it means they were never holding you when you were fully present. That is not connection. That is dependency disguised as care. You'll notice something powerful happen. The more you embrace silence, the more you see clearly. Patterns appear, games unravel, false loyalty collapses, and through all of that collapse, your peace rises. You begin to realize that you don't need loud support, endless praise, or constant validation. You need truth. You need alignment. You need people who don't flinch when you pause, who don't disappear when you're no longer performing, who don't panic when you stop feeding the bond. This is the highest form of psychological clarity. It's not about creating drama. It's about creating distance, not forever, just enough to let the truth surface. When you do, you gain more than information. You gain power. The power to protect your time. The power to filter your relationships. The power to move with eyes wide open. You no longer beg for loyalty. You test for it. You no longer assume intentions. You reveal them. And once you've seen the truth, you don't unsee it. You move differently. You speak less. You choose wisely. Choose wisely. And that's when you become dangerous. Not because you hurt people, but because no one can hurt you without exposing themselves first. Let silence do the work. Let absence speak volumes. Let the false fall away. And in that emptiness, build a world where only the real remain. When you begin to see people clearly, the world stops feeling chaotic. You stop blaming yourself for every disconnection. You stop overanalyzing every shift in energy. You stop holding on to people who've already let go. Because now you understand, most relationships weren't broken. They were never real to begin with. What you mistook for closeness was often just proximity. What you called loyalty was sometimes just dependency. What felt like connection was, at times, just convenience. The 7 tests aren't about judgment, they're about alignment. They strip away illusions so you can build from truth. You don't need to be paranoid, you need to be precise. You need to look at behavior and let it speak louder than words. Because people will say anything when they want to be near your light. But only a few will stand firm when the light fades, when silence grows, when boundaries rise, when your truth becomes uncomfortable. You owe it to yourself to stop operating blindly. You owe it to your future to stop placing your peace in the hands of people who haven't earned it. If they fail the test, let them go. If they shrink from your truth, release them. If they disappear when you stop giving, that's your clarity. You don't need revenge. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You need movement. Forward, clean, unapologetic. Because the longer you cling to those who fail to show up, the more you delay your own evolution. Your peace is not a negotiation. Your loyalty is not a default. Your energy is not a public service. You are not responsible for keeping people comfortable at the cost of your clarity. You don't exist to be easy to access. You exist to become strong enough to choose who earns access. And that choice is sacred. The moment you apply these tests, you step into power most never reach. Because now you're not reacting, you're selecting, you're not guessing, you're filtering. And the more you filter, the more you protect your vision, your goals, your emotional bandwidth. You'll be surprised how many people disappear when you stop bending. That's not your loss, that's your freedom. You weren't meant to be surrounded by many. You were meant to be surrounded by truth, even if it's only a few. Even if it's just you for a while. Solitude with clarity is far more powerful than connection built on illusion. And once you've tasted the strength that comes from clean relationships, from filtered intentions, from being able to see people for who they really are, you'll never go back. Let your silence expose the unstable. Let your distance ask their depth. Let your boundaries be the gate through which only the loyal pass. Because the moment you decide to live by truth instead of assumption, by observation instead of hope, you become untouchable. Not because no one tries to deceive you, but because no deception survives your awareness. Keep testing.